Okay, it's Sunday, which means against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. So I've been to the Overwatch University subreddit and scraped all the questions off the first couple pages, and we're going to answer them now. Well, just some random footage of Overwatch plays in the background. These are from videos we haven't seen yet that are coming up in the next couple days, so here's a teaser for you. So, first question is, double shield plus Bastion plus Torb. How do you beat this? Every week, man. Every week. So, the double shield's awfully redundant, because Reinhardt's pretty much going to be there just as an emergency, because Orisa has way better shield uptime than Reinhardt does, so having the double shield's awfully redundant, I always think. Reinhardt tends to just kind of be there, you know? It's Orisa that does most of the heavy lifting as far as a bunker comp goes. You're better off having a different tank, one of the off tanks along with the Orisa usually, but whatever, that's not the question. So you've got very limited options in terms of a singular player, right? Because that's usually what people want to know. How could me, have solved this problem? And tragically, the answer is, well, it will have been very difficult for you to do so. Because the team that's doing double shield Bastion Torb, they're using the most heinous of all tactics. They're using teamwork. I know. And it's very hard to beat teamwork as a singular person, so your options are pretty limited. You can go Sombra. She's one of the most direct solutions, because you just build up Emp, and then both the shields are gone. They can't put them up. Bastion's out of turret form. Torbjorn shuts down. The whole comp just immediately falls in on itself once they've been emped. The problem is getting to the emp to begin with, because it is very difficult to farm ult charge against that kind of team comp, but that's the easiest solution. Your other options are basically to pick heroes that are very good at breaking shields. So, Hanzo, Bastion, Junkrat, these heroes good at breaking shields. It will be hard to get through both shields in time, is the issue here. So, those heroes become less good when it's double shield. Ooh, big slowdown on that video right there. They become less good when it's double shield, but against singular shield, they're significantly better, and there's still an option, especially if you have anybody else on the team that's good at breaking barriers as well. Even just like a soldier will help significantly. And then your other choices are heroes that have like big area denial ultimates. So Junkrat again, that's a poor way to phrase it. Ultimates that punish the enemy team for grouping tightly together is a better way to put it. So Chire, Riptire, Maze Blizzard is good, Dragon Strike is good. These are just, even if they don't necessarily kill people, Blizzard you can expect to lead to usually a death or two with this kind of comp, but even if they don't kill them, they force the people to get up and move and disperse, and at that point the bunker comp has started to break apart, and that's the main ideal, because as soon as like Bastion's over here and the shields are over there, Bastion's fucking dead. So that works. Again, the difficulty will be farming ult charge, especially on someone like Mei. She's going to have a lot of difficulty actually hitting people on that comp, just because it's hard to get the icicles past double barriers, right? So that's going to be the issue there, is again, farming the ult charge. But that just means the one ult that you, like, because you're likely to only get one, maybe two ultimates over the course of, like, a 4-minute, 3-minute round, right? So you've got to make sure that one ultimate really counts, because that's the only way that you're gonna make it work with a hero like Mei, pretty much. Even with, like, Junkrat and Hanzo, the ultimate dispersing the enemy team or getting a couple of kills is going to be the main way you do it, though they do also have the option of breaking barriers. Now, there are a couple of options that require minimal teamwork, and these are some of the better choices, because if you can get a Roadhog and a Mei to coordinate, only two people, and it's a pretty straightforward communication. If you can get them to work together, you can get the Mei to wall the Bastion, and then he's above the barriers, and then Roadhog hooks the Bastion off the top of the ice wall. And then the Bastion is fucking dead. I hope. If he got out of that one, something went horribly wrong. But then, as soon as the Bastion's gone, the whole team starts to fall apart. Yeah, they have the Torbjorn, but Bastion is like the thing that this team is revolving around, right? So as soon as that's removed, it makes it significantly easier, and that's very minimal coordination. Just Mei and an Ana could also work. Same principle, wall under the Bastion, trank him, bio-grenade him. Either way, Bastion's not very happy. He has to move, at least, and get reset up again, causing a disruption, and then hopefully your team can capitalize on that. And those are, like, pretty much your best options. It's very hard to deal with these team comps as a singular person, and that's why this question comes up so frequently, is how do you deal with it? Well, the answer is you use teamwork. You know, you get, like, something that's, like, really good if you can get it going versus this kind of comp specifically is actually using Transcendence to go in, because Sound Barrier doesn't give you enough of a buffer to survive running into a Bastion bunker comp, right? You need more healing you need something better than Sound Barrier for that, and that's pretty much going to be Transcendence. You can still die doing this while using Transcendence, but going in with Transcendence is pretty much the most surefire way to actually get to the bunker and hopefully do something about it. I should have included self-destruct in that ultimate part as well, but with double shield that'll be worse as well because Orissa's there, Reinhardt turns around, pretty much dealt with, but against like the bunker, then Divas is also very good. But, like, if you can get your team to go in with you on Transcendence, then that's 6 seconds of it's very hard for us to die. It's still not impossible, especially if they've got, like, their full in, got, like, Nano Boost and Amplification Matrix, then it's very possible for Bastion to just kill you through Transcendence, but that's one of the more consistent ways to, like, deal with it, because unless they are willing to invest very heavily in the Bastion, you will get to him, and then hopefully you can deal with it before Transcendence runs out or anybody actually dies. The thing is with using Transcendence to go in versus Sound Barriers, it's a much harder thing to actually get your team to work with, because the area on Transcendence is not that big, and everybody's got to go together. Everybody's got to go together. So again, it's a teamwork situation. And that's why the question comes up so much, man. It's like, well, I'm in low SR, my team doesn't want to work with me, so I've got to try and deal with it myself. How do I deal with it by myself? You pretty much can't. It's very hard, because just think about it baseline, right? Like, even if we just go standard bunker, right? Like, just the Orisa bunker, no double shields or anything. Bare minimum, you're going to be working against the Bastion, the Orisa, and the healer, whichever the healer they have, because they could have Bastion, Mercy, Ana, they can have any of them, right? But bare minimum, you're going to be working against 3 people. It's hard to deal with anything like that as a singular person, especially if you play like tank or support, because you've got pretty much close to 0 options. You know, you've got, if you're Reinhardt, you can try and get in there and pin that motherfucker. If you're Orisa, you can't do halt anymore, can you? No, Orisa can't do that. You can pretty much try and break barriers. Roadhog, you can try and hook them. Diva, you can try and use self-destruct and defense matrix, but your options as like tanks and healers are very low, and you need teamwork in most cases to deal with it. Those are the easiest ways to deal with it. The most reliable one for like lower SRs, particularly to get going, is probably going to be Mei Roadhog, just because it's only 2 people, you need to get to work together, and it's very straightforward. I'm going to wall him, and then you're going to hook him. So as long as both heroes execute properly, it's pretty straightforward. The issue is getting 2 people to work together, and also the Mei has to actually be able to aim the wall correctly. So that's also going to be an issue. But that's like probably the best way to do it in most lower SRs, but it's going to be a problem. Like, it's always going to be a problem, because it's just not a situation one person can deal with, unfortunately. You can't beat multiple people as one person reliably. You just can't do it. Yeah, so unfortunately, that's what I got for you. So next up is, sorry, I'm writing down what time I've moved on to the next question to try and make this easier in the future. Next question is, Jesus Christ, I don't know what happened to me there. How much should you pay attention to the weapon accuracy stat? And I don't think it's worth worrying about unless you are playing Widowmaker or Ashe, because these are the 2 most precision-based heroes in the game. Even, like, Soldier, even McCree, Sombra, Hanzo, these are, like, the accuracy heroes, but they do a lot of spam firing. So, even I don't think is really worth worrying about. They don't warrant that much worrying about the accuracy stat, to be honest with you. But So, like, if you're worrying, if you want to pay attention to them on them as well, fair enough, whatever. I just think it's less worth worrying about them compared to Ashe and Widow, who are the two most precision heroes in the game. So, you know, it's worth paying attention to, especially if you're looking to, like, really seriously improve your aim. The thing is, you've got to be really realistic when you look at the accuracy stat of the end of every game, because Overwatch, compared to a game like CSGO, has a lot of things that can affect the accuracy stat, that can make the end result less reliable than you would want it to be, really. Like, you've got to think about the game in question, because unlike like CSGO, everybody's the same, you know? Everybody is using the same gun, everybody is the same model, pretty much, like, you know, minor differences just in aesthetics, but, like, same model. Very uniform, very easy to just correlate the stat over multiple games. The problem is with Overwatch is that we've got heroes like Genji and we've got heroes like Roadhog, right? So you've got to be really realistic about what happened in the game. You got to think like, all right, was I playing against goats? You know, was I playing against a team of 5 assassins? Did I spend a lot of time shooting barriers? You know, you've got to think about that kind of thing, and then really think about, and also you gotta think about like how long the game was. You've got to take a bunch of different, was it a stomp one direction or the other? Like, you got to take a bunch of different things into account and think about that, because if you're playing against goats and it was like a 10-minute game, you know, then you having an accuracy stat of like 60% is actually not super impressive, right? Because it's a lot of very easy people to hit, and the game didn't run that long, so there was less chance of you missing overall, right? Or, well, you could argue, I guess, the reverse of that, but I guess the longer the game is, the more reliable the stat becomes also, because then you've got less just random variance involved in it. But you've got to think about these kind of things. If like I was playing against a team of like 5 assassins and like Lucio, right? Then me having an accuracy stat of 40% suddenly becomes pretty good, actually, because I was playing against a team of exclusively hard to hit people, right? So, you know, you've got to really think about that, like how much time did I spend just shooting barriers, you know? And this is why it's like Soldier I really don't think it's worth worrying about, because you're going to spend so much time just plinking into barriers, plinking into tanks, like, you're going to spend a lot of time doing that, and most of the time you shoot a couple shots at a DPS or a support and then try to finish them with the missile. So, like, Soldier's accuracy stat is most of the time going to end up being inflated compared to everybody else, just because of the way Soldier plays, right? But you've got to think about these kind of things, and you've got to, like, really think about the game that just happened, and be honest with yourself, and think, like, well, what did I spend a lot of time doing, you know? Was I playing Widow and just spent a lot of time shooting Roadhog, you know? Like, you've got to really think about it. So, you know, the only stat I've ever personally worried about is deaths, because deaths is the one stat that cannot possibly lie to you. It will always be the case that dying less was better than dying more. So that's why that's the only stat I worry about. It's the only one that will always be objectively true. Dying less is always going to be better than dying more. So that's the only thing I think is like personally worth worrying about. But and ones like objective kills, let's be real, who gives a shit about objective kills, right? That's just the desperation medal. Ah, fuck, I don't have the gold medal in anything except objective kills. What am I gonna shit talk the DPS on now? You know, that's what objective kills is. So I think deaths is worth worrying about. Don't worry about any of the others personally, but, you know, it's worth as much as you value the stat personally, right? Like, some people, the accuracy stat means a fucking lot to them, and if that's the case for you, great, you know, whatever you, like, especially if you're someone who wants to just, like, never miss a shot in their entire life. Good for you. But you've got to be honest with yourself when you're looking at that stat, and be, like, real with yourself. What did I do during this game, you know? So, I personally wouldn't worry about it. Short answer, I wouldn't worry about it on Ashe or Widow, personally. And just, you know, if you're trying to really seriously improve your aim, then worry about it, but be honest with yourself at the same time when you look at the end of each game. So, now, moving on. Next up. That's not what I wanted to push, as you might have guessed. There we go. So, next up is... Group up is the first fundamental we all learn. Why does it seem like high SR streamers never do it? There's actually a typo in there. I just wrote never do. There you go. Fix that. Good job. Don't worry, future me. I got you covered. So, the thing is with the rules is that first we learn the rule, and then we learn when to break the rule. Because that's part of getting better as a player. Is, you teach yourself the rules, you teach yourself the fundamentals, but part of being a very good player is knowing when it is time to break those rules. Because the rule will never be true or correct 100% of the time. It will be true most of the time, but it will not be true 100% of the time. So, part of being a very good player is learning when it is time to break that rule because it is better for this specific situation. So that's part of it. But I would also argue that the more core fundamental is just don't die, and that's something that the high SR streamers have gotten good at doing, is not dying. Because you don't necessarily need to all march in as 6 people. You're more likely to see that kind of thing happen on the Overwatch League, where it is a very coordinated situation. But, you don't actually need to all march in as 6 people in unison together. Because if you're playing, Soldier, McCree, Ashe, Widow, if you know that nothing is threatening you, really, then you can stand wherever the fuck you want, right? As long as you're not going to get dove as those heroes, you can sit as far back as you want, really, because not that much is threatening you. Similarly, you don't need to play as close to your team if you are good at recognizing how much threat you're actually under and what you can get away with in that particular moment. This is also the thing with the higher SR streamers, is they are generally much better at knowing the limits of their heroes and what they can get away with. As a result, they are able to play them further apart from their team without getting punished for it, Because people just kind of look at, what the streamers are doing. And this is the thing with, watching the higher SR players, and this is going to tie into a later question as well, is that if you are not a very high-level player yourself, it can be hard to notice exactly the nuances of what's happening. Unless the streamer is very vocal about conveying their thought process and what they're trying to do right now, it can be hard to actually figure out why they're doing what they're doing right now and how they're getting away with it. So, if you're in, a silver player and you're just watching fucking Seagull go off and play Genji, you're like, what the fuck? He never groups up with his team. He's not waiting for anybody. Look at this guy. He's all the way behind the enemy team. What's he even doing? You don't know why he's doing what he's doing. You don't know how he gets away with what he's doing, and you don't know what he's thinking about. And it can be hard to figure that out if you don't already have a firm knowledge base as well. So, because the person in this thread said from their perspective it looked like higher level players were always just trickling in one by one. And, they aren't, because that's bad to do. It's just that they understand that you don't need to group up doesn't necessarily mean everybody hold hands and walk in together. It can just, especially now if you're playing a flanker, group up for a flanker means something very different compared to group up for Reinhardt, right? Group up for a flanker is just, my team's over there doing something while I'm doing something. So, the moral of the story is, the fundamentals, the rules of the game, they're only true most of the time, they're not true all of the time, and part of being a good player is learning when to break the rules. And the first fundamental is really don't die, not group up, which is the more important fundamental. So there you go. Short answer, but that's what you get for not a terribly complicated question. So, next up is, with the 2CP attacker nerf, should you try to defend point A more often now? And I found this thread truly just depressing to look at, because sorry, I keep cracking the 9 knuckles right into the microphone lately. The thing that the most upvoted comment in that thread was basically saying, yeah, because if you can stall them on overtime to point A, that means they only have 3 minutes to attack on point B, and you're only going to take 3 seconds to respawn, so you can't be in that bad of a position. Stall it as much as you possibly can. Oh god, it broke my heart. Because that's, like... The reason snowballing happens on 2CP maps is, part of it was the spawn, but most of the reason that snowballing on 2CP maps happen is fucking ult charge, because attackers roll point A easy, defenders don't get any ult charge, attackers just crush the fight, so attackers rock up to the second checkpoint with 3 ultimates, defending team has 0 ultimates, defending team loses. That's how snowballing typically happens on a 2CP maps. The spawn can be bad, the spawn can definitely make it worse, but most of it is actually the ultimate. So the thing is with stalling it, is you could stall it out for like 5 minutes, right? Like, you could stall it out for a fucking long time. But like, if you don't ultimately win the stall, all you actually did was feed them a fuck ton of ult charge. Like, if you are playing, like, Hammond Diva, Winston, Lucio, right? Like, you're gonna get back to point A pretty fucking fast, but you're also going to feed biblical amounts of ult charge to the enemy team. So if you don't win the stall, in the end, you could have just created a bigger snowball. Yeah, you're gonna spawn faster, even that might not necessarily matter depending on the attacking team, because if you're on like Volskaya has a pretty long walk back in terms of 2CP maps from the second checkpoint, and if the enemy team is playing fast heroes, right, and you're not playing fast heroes, the 3-second respawn can still be bad enough for you to end up being in a very bad position as they're approaching, because it's not just about where you are when the fight starts, it's where you are when it's leading into the fight as well, because if, like, you got, like, Soldier McCree, and, like, they couldn't get into, like, a great vantage point, and then they're on the point, well, fuck, now they're just fighting from a bad vantage point, right? Like, it can still be bad, even with the 3-second spawn. But you're still, bare minimum, gonna end up feeding more ult charge. If they end up wasting a bunch of ultimates to capture this point they already captured, fucking great, I guess. But, like, that's hoping they waste their ultimates, and any play that revolves around the enemy team playing badly is itself a bad play, so you shouldn't do it. So, no, you shouldn't go for stalling out or trying to defend point A more often now, because the reason it was bad was only partly because of the spawn. The bigger reason was feeding the enemy team ult charge, and that hasn't changed. You can still feed a fuck ton of ult charge to the enemy team. So, no, you still shouldn't do it. If you have lost an objective, just reconcile that you have lost the objective, save your resources to use on the fight that you have a more realistic chance of actually winning. So, there you go. Short answer, no, it's still bad, don't do it. Reddit's fucking stupid. I'm right. Actually, everybody else is wrong, thank you. That's science. So, next up, and this tied into the other question, was how to follow other people's gameplay. And this person was specifically saying that they watched a lot of like high SR games, they watched a lot of high SR VoDs and tried to learn from them. But they found it very hard to do so. Just because they couldn't follow the gameplay properly, or they couldn't, that was what they said, but also, more realistically, they probably, again, don't know the intricacies going into what's happening, right? So for this specifically, right, I think it is more worth watching videos from people that are only a bit ahead of where you are right now, if you're talking about realistically improving, watching other people's videos to improve. Because the thing is, if you are a bronze player, right, and you watch a Grandmaster VoD, right, or a Masters VoD, or even a Diamond VoD, that game is going to look so drastically different to your games that it is going to be very difficult for you to learn from it. Because first off, it's hard to notice, without having a knowledge base yourself, it is hard to notice some of the more important things, like positioning. It's hard to understand why people are standing where they're standing and why they're what they're doing if you don't already have some kind of foundation to build on yourself, right? So, and then, like, they're gonna be moving a Grandmaster player playing in a Grandmaster game is going to move dramatically differently to how they would in how a Grandmaster would move in a Bronze game, for example, right? I remember there was a story, Jane said this on one of his videos once, where somebody was learning how to play Soldier. I think it was a pro player. It was a very high SR player, and he was trying to learn how to play Soldier on a Smurf, and he was attacking Hanamura, and he said to him, well, you're playing your X insert very good player here, whichever one it was, and you're playing in, like, silver, right? Why don't you just sprint through the gate and kill them, because you know they aren't going to be able to react to you properly, and you're just going to get a bunch of kills. And the player responded, because I don't want to learn how to play Soldier the wrong way. Because that'll work in silver, but that won't work in diamond or above, right? Because they'll react appropriately to me. So I don't want to learn how to play Soldier the wrong way. So that's part of it as well. I always think that is a very incredibly good mindset to have, right? Because that's how people end up plateauing really early on, is they play someone like Doomfist, right? And they are just pretty good mechanically, like they know roughly how to play Doomfist. So they play Doomfist and they crush, like, bronze players because they don't know what to do versus Doomfist, and you're able to get away with a lot more shit because they don't know what they're doing. But then you get up to, like, Plat, and now someone knows how to play McCree. Now someone knows how to play Sombra. Oh fuck, now what do I do, right? And that's how you end up plateauing really early on, because you kind of got bounced up by the fact that the other players just didn't know what to do. So now you got to where they do know what to do, but you didn't learn what to do. So now you're here, and you're stuck, and you don't know what to do to move on at this point. This got very rambling and incoherent at this point, but the moral of the story is, I think it's more worth watching people that are a little bit further ahead of you, right? Like, if you're a bronze player, and you're, like, watching a VoD to improve, I think you should watch, like, a gold player. Someone who's just a bit further ahead of you. Because their games will look roughly comparable to you, but they will still be better than you at the game, but in ways that are more appreciable and ways that are more easy to apply to the games that you're currently playing. And I think that's true of all SRs. If you're silver, I think you should stick to, like, gold or plat. If you're in gold, I think you should go to plat or diamond. You shouldn't go, well, I'll look at, like, top tier players, because their games will look so dramatically different. And that's not to say you can't learn from them, because it is possible to have, like, a good understanding of a game without necessarily being hugely skilled yourself, right? Like, I think it's very possible for a coach to be just in silver themselves, but have a grandmaster's understanding of the game, right? I think that's very easy to have happen. You've just, I mean, like, you know, you wouldn't tell, like, a sports analyst that he doesn't know shit about basketball until he's dunked on Shaq, right? Like, the guy can know a lot about the game without personally being fantastic at the game himself. So that can be true, but if you're looking to improve, I recommend just sticking to people that are only a tier or two ahead of you, because it'll be easier for you to understand what they're doing, and their games will look more similar to your games, making it easy to pick up and implement what you learn from it. Specific things to focus on, I think, are until you get to the higher SRs, I think it's more worth worrying about just the broad sweeping things. Like, if you're not, like, platinum or above, like, just look at things like how they use their abilities, when they choose to engage, how they use their ultimates, you know, that kind of thing. Don't worry about, like, every little thing that they're doing. Oh, why is he standing here right now, you know? Don't maybe worry about that until you start getting higher up. Just worry about, like, the more core elements first, like ult execution, ability use, and then try and learn that, and then, you know, worry about the things that'll be more broadly useful first, and then once you get higher, start worrying about the more fine-grained things, like how well this guy's playing Soldier, and once you have a better understanding of the game yourself, it's easier to say things like, oh, well, this guy's playing Soldier really aggressively right now, but I can see he's not being pressured at the same time. The enemy team isn't very dive heavy. They don't have much hard crowd control, so he's able to just go up and play very close to them right now without fear of really getting punished for it. Or, oh, he's playing really cautiously on McCree right now. It's because he's got a Doomfist and a Sombra on the enemy team, so it's not that he's playing cautiously, it's that he's worrying about protecting his backline more than anything else, so he's playing more conservatively than he would do versus more of a bunker comp, you know. Then, once you've got a knowledge base, you start being able to see things like that. But if you're still like a lower SR player, that kind of shit doesn't matter to you. That kind of shit matters to like the platinum or better players. The kind of shit that'll matter to you, like gold or below, is really just like, oh, what did he do with his ultimate? You know, that's the stuff that's more important to you. So that's what I would recommend, is look for that kind of thing and just watch gameplay from people that are only a tier or two ahead of you, because it'll be more easily understood and easier to translate. There you go. So, next up is... write that down. There you go. Torb has incredible outputs, sustainability, and movement. So, why is the player base overall so down on him? So, Torbjorn is in fact fine. He is not as good, and now we're just going to play these videos over again because I only prepared 2, but I'm such a rambling and incoherent man. I should have known better. I should have gotten 3. So the thing is with Torbjorn is that he is basically fine. He has been ever since they reworked him, pretty much. But the thing is, he doesn't have... like, his skill ceiling isn't as high as someone like Widowmaker, because Torbjorn still does have things that hold him back. Mostly his hitbox. His hitbox is awful. His head is extremely large, and his model in general is very easy to hit. So this is something that's gonna hold him back, unfortunately, is you do have to, when we're talking about, like, non-tank, even tanks, it still matters for tanks, but even if we're talking about non-tanks, hitbox matters a lot, actually. And Torbjorn has a really bad one. So that's, like, the main issue with Torbjorn. But he is basically fine. Like, I still think you can play Torbjorn. Like, you can probably get to Grandmaster as easy as Torbjorn if you're, like, really good at Torbjorn. There's nothing that actually wrong with him anymore. I think he is perfectly fine to play. On both attack and defense, I think Torbjorn is fine. He's going to be better at defense, but he's going to be fine on attack also. And especially in, like, lower SRs, I think it is extremely viable for you to be, like, decent at Torbjorn and crush it up until, like, gold, probably, where you'll start meeting more resistance at that point, because Torbjorn's very good at punishing bad people as well, just because of his turret, and if people don't want to play around you as Torbjorn, like, you'll have a great time. So Torbjorn's fine. The problem is that it is very hard to drop a stigma that has been attached to you, right? And Torbjorn definitely has a stigma attached to him. He has a stigma attached to him because people have been playing with Torbjorn for many seasons, like double-digit seasons, where Torbjorn was a troll pick, and he's been associated with troll picks, throwers, griefers, and one-tricks, right? So Torbjorn has a very negative stigma attached to him. This is something other heroes have had as well, and they have eventually begun getting over. Symmetra has had that stigma attached to her. She has started getting over it, though she isn't over it yet either. Orisa had this stigma attached to her hardcore for the first few months after she came out. Like, people thought that Orisa was a completely trash, worthless hero, right? And then, like, a couple seasons later, people were like, huh. As Reddit in particular was like, almost over fucking night, they went, oh, Orisa's overpowered, dude. Like, Orisa got over that, but she had it, like, attached to her real bad for a while. Anna, when Anna first got released, she had the hardcore stigma attached to her for, like, a week. And then everybody was like, oh, she's actually, like, really overpowered, isn't she? Fuck shit. And that was undeniably true, but, like, it can be difficult for heroes to get over stigmas that have been attached to them, and it has happened to other heroes. They've begun getting over it. Sombra has finally started to drop her stigma, despite having it since launch. So, you know, well, since her launch, she wasn't in at launch, you get the idea. So that's the main issue with Torbjorn, is there's nothing really wrong with him. He's got problems, but I mean, who doesn't, right? Like, everybody's got problems. The problem is just the community perception of him. There's nothing wrong with Torbjorn. If you want to play Torbjorn, dude, by all means, you fucking play Torbjorn. You have a great time playing Torbjorn, and I bet you will see plenty of success playing Torbjorn. But people are going to shit-talk you, because Torb just has a stigma attached to him, and it's going to take him a while to get over that. I do think Torbjorn is fine, so I think it is only a matter of time before people get over this conception of Torbjorn, but, you know, until then, it's going to be a problem, and it's not any problem that Torbjorn actually has. Torbjorn's fine. It's just, that's not the button I wanted to push. It's just that he has a stigma attached to him, and he has to try and get over that. And I do think he's fine, so I think it'll happen. It's just about how long it's going to take. So there you go. Next up, and this is the last question for this week, is which tank is best against Reaper? And very straightforward answer, it's Orisa, if we're talking about just like strictly fighting Reaper. If we're talking about trying to help my team versus Reaper, it's pretty much going to be D.Va. And if we're talking about realistically killing Reaper, the only one who has any chance is Roadhog, but you gotta pray real hard. So the thing is, right, so here's why Orisa can do it, is she's just got flatly better options than other tanks do in terms of like dealing with Reaper, because if you use Fortify, you are already better than any other tank as far as, like, not dying to Reaper goes. And you can do barrier dancing, you've got Halt to hold him back, you've got all these kinds of things, right? So she's the only one who, like, you know, you're just kind of doing your thing, Reaper pops out next to you, you probably won't die unless your team doesn't help you for, like, a very extended period of time. So that's, like, the best you got there. D.Va is good for helping your team versus Reaper because he's going for somebody. I can defense matrix over him while he's shooting at them, and then I can push him away with my shift as well, and hopefully keep the person alive. And I can defense matrix part of his ultimate. Not the whole thing anymore, but I can defense matrix part of it. Hopefully long enough to get my team to react, right? And Roadhog can kill Reaper because he can go right-click, hook, left-click, melee, and then he prays that killed Reaper. Because if that didn't kill Reaper, Reaper is about to heal up to full health and kill you. So you pray that works, because if it doesn't, you die. But he's the only one that's got a chance of, like, killing him, really. So that's the thing, though, with Reaper, is Reaper counters the tanks. So no tank is good against Reaper. Those are pretty much your options, depending on what you're going for. And you'll notice that 2 of those are off tanks. So your only choice as a main tank, really, is Orisa. Because Reinhardt, he can't do fucking anything, dude. Like, Reinhardt's gonna get wrecked by a Reaper. He needs his team to help him. Winston obviously can't do shit to a Reaper, right? So, like, you've got Orisa. That's basically what you got. The off tanks can at least peel him. Zarya, not awful for helping your team because you can bubble the person that he's going for, and then that'll stop them from getting just immediately killed, and it'll stop Reaper from healing for a little bit, which is the bigger thing, to be honest with you. And in terms of hitbox, Zarya has the best one for fighting Reaper because she is just not as fat as the other tanks are. And that is going to be of great benefit to you when you're playing against a shotgun hero, is having a smaller hitbox, so just less of it is likely to hit you. But those are your only options, really, because Reaper counters the tanks. So unfortunately, you're never going to have good options. You're always going to need your teammates to help you. But those are pretty much your only choices. So, you know, figure out what your team needs at that particular moment and kind of go with that. So there you go. That's what I got for you. So that's all the questions for this week. So thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I start streaming on Twitch Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 8 p.m. EST till midnight EST. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future. And I hope you found the video helpful.